They weren't charming rogues or freedom-loving adventurers. The real pirates of the Caribbean were something far more dangerous. Desperate men and women driven by poverty, war, and the promise of gold in a world where law barely existed. Between 1650 and 1730, the Caribbean became a battleground of empires, and the perfect breeding ground for the Golden Age of Piracy. When most people picture a pirate, they think of Jack Sparrow, witty, daring, and strangely likable. The truth was far grimmer. Real pirates lived short, brutal lives. They didn't sail under skull and crossbones flags out of romance or rebellion, but because it was the only way to survive when Europe's wars left thousands of sailors unemployed. The Caribbean was crawling with merchant ships carrying silver, sugar, rum, and enslaved people, all worth fortunes. To men with nothing to lose, piracy wasn't madness, it was opportunity. Take Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard. He wasn't a wild drunkard or a madman, he was a strategist. He tied slow-burning fuses into his beard during battle to terrify enemies, but he rarely needed to fight. His reputation did most of the work. When he blockaded Charleston Harbor in 1718, entire ships surrendered without firing a shot. Yet despite his fearsome legend, Blackbeard's pirate career lasted less than 2 years. Most pirates didn't live long enough to grow old. The average lifespan after turning pirate was barely 3 years. Disease, starvation, and violent encounters made survival unlikely. But for a brief, chaotic period, they dominated the Caribbean seas. And then there was Calico Jack Rackham, whose fame came not from battles, but from his crew. Anne Bonny and Mary Read, two of the few documented female pirates in history. Disguised as men, they fought alongside their shipmates until their capture in 1720. Both women were sentenced to hang, but claimed to be pregnant. Mary died in prison. Anne's fate remains a mystery. In a world that gave women no power, piracy offered them a twisted form of freedom, one paid for in blood. Hollywood also paints pirates as rebels against tyranny, sailing under the Jolly Roger as a symbol of freedom. In truth, the flag was psychological warfare. Each design, skeletons, hourglasses, bleeding hearts, sent one clear message: surrender now or die horribly. Pirates didn't want long battles, they wanted quick profits. A ship that resisted would be burned, its crew tortured or killed. The pirate code, that is so often romanticized, was actually a set of strict rules about division of loot, discipline, and compensation for injuries. Nothing romantic about it, only practical measures to keep order on a lawless ship. Yet there was one place where the myths come close to truth: Nassau, on New Providence Island. In the early 1700s, it became a pirate republic, a chaotic city of outlaws. With no government strong enough to stop them, hundreds of ships gathered under loose alliances. For a few wild years, the world's most wanted men created a society that lived by its own laws: democratic votes, equal shares of loot, and revenge against the empires that had abandoned them. The town became a haven for thieves, smugglers, and escaped slaves, a melting pot of desperation and ambition, but it didn't last. Britain eventually sent warships and royal pardons. Many pirates accepted amnesty, others fought and died. By 1730, the Golden Age of Piracy was over. Still, the stories survived. Sailors and storytellers turned murderers into legends, and centuries later, Hollywood transformed those legends into billion-dollar franchises. The irony is that real pirates would have laughed at the idea of fame. They weren't chasing adventure. They were escaping starvation, slavery, and war. Their world was not one of palm trees and rum, but disease, violence, and constant fear. A single wound or an unlucky encounter could end a pirate's life in hours. The seas were unforgiving, as were the men who sailed them. Yet maybe that's why the myth endures. Pirates, for all their brutality, embodied a kind of dark freedom, a rebellion against a system that crushed the poor and rewarded the powerful. They offered a glimpse of life without kings, taxes, or empires dictating your fate. When people watch stories about them today, what we really see isn't crime or cruelty, but the fantasy of breaking free. The dream that somewhere, beyond the edge of the map, there's still a place where no one owns you. And for a few years in the Caribbean, pirates made that dream briefly real,